Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. It's your old pal Emac coming to you with one. Wait for it. It's not Adam Ship My Money Share. It is my buddy Chris Spags making his early bird debut. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm excited to be here, Emac. I always enjoy our times on Saturdays, so it's good enough now. I want to get a little taste on a weeknight, a little Emac mixed into my life, but tough to fill the shoes of Ship My Money on a show. But if anybody can help carry me to glory, Emac, it is you, my old pal.
Well, we will find out. We have a nice 8-gamer here coming in on Thursday. This is on the heels of a game Wednesday or a day on Wednesday where we had a very unique 640 lock for the main slate, 5 games. There's one game at 940. Yahoo went with 4 games starting at 7. And then we had 2 or 3, depending on how you want to count the sites, afternoon slates. FanDuel decided to chop the hell out of everything like they normally do. DK punted on the first game, but then went with the solid one, but they started in between the 2 FanDuel slates. So it was kind of a mess. Glad I did not have to do content other than writing the Spotlight Hitters and Stacks article, which, wait for it, is where you can find the link to Yahoo. Third paragraph there, give you the link and instructions with the promo code on how to get $30 in Yahoo Sports Rewards points with your initial deposit over there, your initial DFS deposit. If you've already been playing season long for money, it's a different part of the site, so it will be honored. In any event, Chris, we got an 8-gamer here. As we generally do, we go game by game, focusing on the pitchers. If it's a craptastic pitcher, we'll mention a few hitters here and there. It's always tricky sometimes breaking down into too much detail for the hitters because you get the random days off or a lot of the players play 2, 3, 4 days before. Someone could be harboring a minor injury that we're not aware of, etc. So we focus mostly on the pitchers, and we actually have them all tonight, which doesn't always happen, or we're searching for some of our guys. So I'm pretty sure we have them all, but let's start off with our first game
Detroit,
here.
maybe not. I feel like perhaps not.
Oh, you're right. No, Detroit's being.
I'm sure that's a really important one because of Detroit's pitchers. That's the one that you're going to for quality on any given slate.
Yes, much like
what they're known for.
But let's start in. Perhaps it'll pop up between now and then. I'll look for a little bit of news. Sometimes we can divine who is going to end up there. But our first one is going to be the Nationals heading up to Toronto after their stint in Baltimore. They are taking on the Blue Jays. It will be Thomas Pannone, who is 4,200. He is a lefty. He will be holding down the fort for the Blue Jays. The Yankees have a 6.2 implied run total. We'll have to see if the roof is open or closed there in the Rogers Center. But you have Domingo Germán. So we have the haves and the have-nots here. Let's start off with Mr. Domingo Germán. Any intriguing stat popping out for you other than the fact that he's facing the Blue Jays, who, while talented with all their new legacy guys, their average major league seasons of experience for their starting lineups these days is 2.2 seasons. So wow. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Also, you said the Nationals up front, and I was like,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Did I do something wrong here? My whole concern for the show is just not making it worse in a material way. But Germán, Germán is a pitcher I always am intrigued by too, especially when he's at this price point. On DK, he's at under 9K on the slate. I think that looks pretty good for him. Wait, actually, is that correct? No, sorry. He's under 10K. My bad. Under 10K on the slate. Has a really good swinging strike rate overall. Doesn't quite convert to strikeouts as much as you would think. A 27% K rate, a low 1.1 whip. But honestly, for me, Emac, going against Toronto at this point, it just terrifies me. This lineup has really gotten whole overall. Going against righties, the only guy under a 100 WRC plus in this lineup now is Freddie Galvis. And he's certainly not a bad hitter by any stretch. He has decent power. So I think Toronto's a team I wanted to stack against them a lot before. They still do have strikeouts, but their season-long numbers just don't bear out compared to what the team is now. Because if you look at them versus right-hand pitching on the year, 232 batting average, 89 WRC plus, they've been looking much better than that. And I think getting Bichette in there in the leadoff spot, Biggio's been okay, but hitting a little better, a little more consistently perhaps. I think I don't want to go there, but what do you think about Germán?
I'm not overly excited about him. Now, one thing that we will do kind of at the end is we'll roll through. We sort of have started using DK as our baseline pitchers because it's a 2-pitcher site, covers all the 2-pitcher sites. But we'll go through and we'll specifically talk once everybody has heard the breakdown of the pitchers. We'll rank them according to FanDuel and of course presenting sponsor Yahoo's salary. So we'll get to that. It just helps keep things a little organized here for us. I think he's okay. I think there is some strikeout upside, but I have not been one to be overly trustful of Domingo Germán. Now, I think he's an adequate pitcher. There are just some guys that are a little more expensive that I would be willing to go to. He has faced the Toronto Blue Jays once this year. That start actually came on August 12th, so about a month ago. He performed well, 6 innings, did not allow an earned run, 7 strikeouts, 3 hits, and he lasted, where's the pitch count? He lasted, what, about 70 pitches, or probably, yeah, 78 pitches. So that is really, no guarantee of what's going to happen in this one, but it's solid. But we really need that kind of an outing for this price tag. So I think that one is a little bit tricky. Tournaments, yes. I don't think I trust him at this price point in the cash games, just because there is a bit of a floor. And the Toronto guys, as you referenced their numbers, they're solid. They're going to be inconsistent as hell. If they're all doing poorly on the same day, then hey, nice time to be the pitcher. If they're all going well on the same day, then it's a bad time to be the pitcher. It will probably be somewhere in the middle, but they do have a lot of power, and these guys are good, and they're finding their way. But it wouldn't be surprising as they go through slumps, just because they're young and it's a long season here. But
the power that Germán gives up too is, I'm looking at that now. So his isolated power overall, he's given up a 203 ISO to both sides of the plate, and a sample size going back to last season. To lefties a 222 ISO, to righties a 180 ISO. That's just scary to me because this Toronto lineup does have guys who have pop, even though the inconsistency, I think, is a fairly valid point. The power there is the thing, especially in Toronto's park, which has been one of the better home run parks on the year. Actually, might still be the best home run park overall outside of Coors. It's a really tough spot for a guy who gives up power. So the more I think about it, Germán, the idea intrigues me, especially if Toronto were to pick up ownership. But I think if they're going to be not that chalky, I wouldn't want to go to Germán because I think he's going to give up some power here. It would shock me if he didn't give up a home run or two.
Yeah. But I think it's worthwhile spending some time on him because this is going to be one of the spots where people are like, yeah, what are we really going to do with this guy? And the answer is, we shall have to see. We'll have some more definitive stance elsewhere. One of them going to be Thomas Pannone on the other side. Not really a lot to say. He has, let's see, I'm fixing my ISO column. It's funny, they don't have that category on Fangraphs, but of course, isolated power is slugging minus batting average, so they offer both of those.
I'm like a fancy boy now, Emac. I did my math for that. I'm ready to go with my pitcher ISOs.
You just have to go in and update it yourself. But I downloaded a new sheet and I had not brought those formulas with it. So in any event, Pannone getting hit for a little bit of power here. He has faced since the beginning of last season 426 batters. He's given up 16 total home runs, 185 ISO to righties, 170 to lefties. But he's facing the Yankees, and even though these are not the Yankees with all of their injuries, they're still pretty darn good. And what it has done is it has moved up some of their secondary players who probably wouldn't be seeing much more than 2 or 3 starts a week, but they have more prominent roles in the batting order. So Didi Gregorius has moved up. Giovanni Urshela probably will be batting cleanup. All of a sudden, we've got Mike Ford, Mike Tauchman, Cameron Maybin's resurfaced yet again, Brett Gardner. The price has come up on them. So it's not going to be a slam dunk, but this is a very nice matchup as indicated by the 6.2 implied run total. So it's a no for Pannone, but we do mention he is 4,800. Adam will probably find a way to mention he should be reasonably worthwhile on 8 to 10% of your lineups just for the strikeout upside he will carry against the Yankees. And that is fine if you're making 150 teams. If you're hand building or going 20 or less, I don't think I'll have Pannone. I know that you like to play the 20 max, Chris. How do you feel about Pannone there on DK at his price?
On a slate of the size, you can pretty much talk me into anybody. I think once you get under 10 games, for the most part, I'm willing to get a little bit weird with it at pitcher. But Pannone giving up a lot. The fly ball rate's pretty high here, a 48% rate on the year. And also a stat, which I've been looking at a little bit more, not as a one where I'm trying to go for it too hard, getting barreled at a 10.5% clip. So in terms of the plate appearances, he's giving up the barrel of the balls, making really good contact and driving the ball deep. Of course, with the MLB barrel alerts, Twitter is one that people are familiar with. And Pannone, even though he hasn't given up a ton of production, 5.4 xFIP isn't terrible. I think he is going to give up enough power here. And against the Yankees, who are pretty much all power versus left-hand pitching, I think it's a tough spot to really want to go to him. And, the price is appealing. I think if the Yankees have a ton of ownership, I could see wanting to get there. I'm always up for a leverage pitcher, but with that amount of power in Toronto, it seems really unlikely for him to hit the value I'd want to get.
All right, let's move along here. We do have our next game. It is the Cubs and the Red Sox. Pardon me, the Reds in a rivalry game. We have Cole Hamels taking on Alex Wood. A couple of southpaws here. It's going to be in the mid 80s with about a 60% humidity, with a 6 to 8 mile an hour breeze going out to left field. There, Cole Hamels, 8,800. He's going against a squad that, well, not as tough as they were now that they have shipped out Yasiel Puig, but they have brought in a whole bunch of new pitchers, which I don't know what Cincinnati is doing. But Hamels, I think, is in consideration here based on his price point. You're hoping he doesn't get blown up. You're hoping for, maybe a strikeout per inning, that he flirts with a quality start and manages to survive this matchup against the Reds. In the Great American Ballpark. On the other side, Alex Wood, kind of interesting. I know you do have some thoughts on him. This will be his second start since his long injury layoff. He should, let's look at his pitch count. His last two, to 93 against Atlanta, and then 80 against Colorado. So I think 90 pitches is in play against the Cubs. He is 7,600, becomes an intriguing price point to look to him on the two pitcher sides. What do you like from this battle of the Midwestern squads?
Yeah, I think Alex Wood is a little bit interesting because his lefty splits are really strong. His righty splits are not quite as good. He's got a 1.8 whip versus lefties. You are going to get some lefties in this lineup, at least a smattering of them, which I think could be interesting. And a 1.8 xFIP is nothing to sneeze at going against lefties, as well as a better K rate. But yeah, Wood to me not the most appealing on the year. And as Emac mentioned, it's a very limited sample size, but 6.5% on run rate so far. The thing to me, though, is like going back to last year, his power allowed is pretty low. 127 ISO in that sample size, faced over 680 batters going back to last year. Really not giving up that power. So maybe it's a thing that'll help him out in the old Great American Ballpark there. And a spot where I could see having some of him, but it's not one that's the most exciting, especially because you have a couple Cubs in the lineup. I mean, Castellanos, Bryant, those guys are murderers of left-handed pitchers. Castellanos a 173 WRC plus, Bryant a 190. Javi Baez not far behind with a 153 WRC plus. So those three alone, I think, will probably spook me off of Wood. And Hamels, I think you said the point. I mean, he limits damage well. Strikeouts aren't the best. The 24% K rate, but still good enough. I think, though, with the Reds, I've really been playing the Reds a lot lately. I like them a lot on yesterday's slate. They ended up getting there for the most part, having some really good guys. And Eugenio Suarez helped me troll Jake, which is really all I could ask if anybody has helped me either troll Jake, Josh, or Emac at any given point. But I think this team is getting better. And I think, even though Hamels has limited damage, Aquino's been really good. I mean, probably unsustainably so, but he's been extremely good. Suarez really does hit lefties well. Senzel has hit lefties well, even though he's come back down to earth a little bit from his beginning of the year. Still not striking out, just 11% K rate for him. It's a tough matchup. And Barnhart is the only guy under 100 WRC plus, which is one thing I do try to find for the stacks and just, to watch out for guys who are going to be, potential to be blown up. And if you only have Barnhart as the lowest at a 93 WRC plus, that is a risky spot for Hamels, even though he has been pretty serviceable.
Yeah, Barnard had double dong the other day, if I remember correctly. So
did not have enough of him in that situation, unfortunately. But
yeah, that was let's see, what day is today? That was on Tuesday. In any event, you mentioned Aquino. That is Aristides Aquino, who is the rookie who has come on up. Price is ticking up on a few of the sites here. He is no longer essentially free on DraftKings, but he is 3,800. He probably will be batting fourth or fifth. He's been promoted to the middle of the order already. He is 2,900 on FanDuel, and then he is 10 on Yahoo. Now, we won't spend a lot of time on the hitters, but that is one price point I do want to call out with him.
And his limited sample stats, because I always find limited sample stats to be fun because they're so silly high, and then they inevitably come down. But in only 10 lefty pitchers faced, 556 batting average, 600 OBP, 667 ISO, and a 355 WRC plus. So as long as he keeps those going, I think he'll be in good shape, Emac.
All right, let's continue along here. Our next game, we have the, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim out in Boston, making their AL East swing. Dylan Peters coming in at 5,300 on DK, going against the Bo Sox. It's going to be 80 degrees in this one. Humidity will be in the 55 to 60 range. There'll be a 6 to 9 mile an hour wind going out to center there. Chris Sale on the other side. The Bo Sox carrying a 6.5 implied run total against Peters. The one thing that we don't have to be concerned with Peters is the pitch count. In his last 4, he's gone 104, 72, 90, and 87. So our pitch per dollar is going to be reasonable. The sad thing is it is going to be against the Boston Red Sox. They may curtail his outing a little more quickly than he would like. They have just over a 6 implied run total here. If you're looking at these guys, is it a potentially broken Chris Sale? Or in good conscience, we can't recommend Dylan Peters.
No, Dylan Peters is terrible. I mean, he's got a 1.4 whip, giving up a 5x FIP on the year. Also a lot of power to right. He's a 218 ISO going back to last season. So he was pitching in the league last year. 183 ISO allowed overall. He's a dude who I really would like to target against. And I think with Boston too, you just have a bunch of hitters in there. JD Martinez, just under a 200 WRC plus going against the lefty. These guys are really going to make it tough on Peters. And they'll certainly be a popular stack. And I would say Peters, not one of the guys I'd want any of. Chris Sale, though, the fundamentally broken thing, he's got some issues. I mean, he keeps giving up power that sucks. It's still a 35% carry rate on the year, which admittedly is down 2% in the longer-term sample size going back to last season. I don't think he's broken. I mean, I think he might have one of those little mental hurdles versus the Yankees, which sometimes happens in this series where there's a Yankee pitcher or hitter who just sucks versus Boston, and then vice versa for a Boston hitter or pitcher who sucks versus the Yankees. And I still will go to Sale. I mean, a 10K price on DraftKings today, that's low for Chris Sale. And, the Angels don't strike out a ton. I get that. But sometimes you got to trust the talent, trust the guy bouncing back. I imagine I'll at least match the field on Chris Sale.
All right. That seems reasonable. Let's continue along here. I do think I have found our Detroit pitcher. We'll get there in a moment.
Ooh. The anticipation is killing me, Mac.
There we go. Well, that's in the biz. We call that what do we call that in the biz? A
little tease,
a hook, a tease.
Or a little clickbait too, if you want to go that way.
All right, there we go. Hey, speaking of click, hit that thumbs up button. This is the first time Chris and I are doing a podcast. We could use some thumbs up there on the YouTube channel, and you can always leave a comment. It's fun to go back and read them. I definitely do that when you leave them, so it is enjoyable. It gives me a laugh, or it gives me a couple things that I need to think about, perhaps, to improve things. So we shall find out what you leave there.
You don't need to improve anything in my eyes, Emac. You're perfect just as you are.
Well, yeah. If you could tell my wife that. That's
I talk to Fast Eddie's wife a lot. I'm good with the Skype lives or the Zoom lives.
Yes. No, Robin is very nice. I've got to meet her in person.
She's a sweet lady.
So, yeah, very. Funny story. She actually grew up in the town next to where I live in Virginia. She hasn't lived there in 20 years, but that's where she grew up. But in any event,
I'm surprised. I would have thought she's like an East Coast woman because she's like sharp, like very funny, and like in the way you'd expect of an Eddie wife. But yeah, I'm surprised by that. She's like got like a New York edge. I thought maybe that might have been the case.
That's true. That's very true. All right, so Atlanta, Miami. Dallas Keuchel gets the lottery ticket of going against the Miami Marlins. Marlins don't quite strike out all that much, but that's okay. That's really not part of Dallas Keuchel's game. 8,000 even going against the Marlins with the 33.4 implied run total. He's in the mix for potentially SP1 on the two pitcher sites. Definitely in the mix as an SP2. Upside may be a little capped there, depending on what happens with the strikeouts. We did see him get a good one the other day. I think he had, a dozen strikeouts in the game. By the way, it was the 3 games prior to that. He had 14 total in those 3 games. So strikeouts are not part of his repertoire. But on the other side, he's going against Eliseo Hernandez, who's coming in at 5,000. Difficult matchup here with Atlanta, who will be traveling. Where were they? I think they were in Minnesota last. So yep. Minnesota to Florida, a long way to go there. But they had a day game here, and they knocked around Minnesota. But this one, I don't think I want to go to Hernandez. You'd be hoping he lasts 4 or 5 innings and gives up 3 or 4 runs, and you're able to spend on some more significant bats. That is asking for about 3 things to go right, which can be a little bit tricky. But talk to me about Keuchel. Talk to me about Hernandez if you have any interest.
Yeah, I don't think I have much for Keuchel. I think that strikeout game, I mean, it has to be an aberration. Even if you add that game in there, he still only has a 17.8% K rate this year. Going back to the slightly longer term sample size of last season, only a 17.6% K rate, none of which too impressive there. One thing that he does do well is keep the ball down, and he's been pitching deep into games, pitching about 6.1 innings per start. So it's not bad for Keuchel at all. And I guess if he can hang in there for that long, and I don't even know if he has a shot at a complete game, but I mean, like theoretically, I think he has the potential to stay in the game for a minute. It's not like he's striking guys out anyway, so he just keeps the ball down, stays in there. Possible that he has value in that respect, but not in a way that I think I would want him at the At the 8K price, I mean, it's possible on the slate of the size to end up with a little bit. Eliezer, though, I imagine I'll have very little of. He gets shelled by lefty hitters rather. 1.7 whip, 7.1 xFIP given up, 260 ISO allowed to lefty batters, and you are getting a lot of dangerous lefties in there like Freddie Freeman. Brian McCann can also hit the ball. Ozzie Albies, a switch hitter who can get it done from time to time. And I think there's enough guys in there. NC Arte, too. I shouldn't sell him short. Assuming these guys are in the lineup, of course, as I shouldn't be referencing. As T-Mac tried to help me out with. But there are lefty bats in this Atlanta roster overall who can do some damage. So I would say that it's no Eliezer, and I might have some Atlanta interest.
All right, on to the surprise. It's Kansas City. It's Detroit. It looks like it is Matt Boyd, according to 4 different sites that I've seen.
A good pitcher. That's a shocker.
There we are. So that's exciting going against Kansas City. This will be the 4th time he has faced Kansas City. He has averaged 6 innings per outing against them. He has allowed 10 earned runs total. That's a 5 ERA, but just 1 home run, 26 strikeouts in those 18 innings. And we know that Kansas City is lacking once you get beyond their top 4.5 hitters. We'll count Chester Cuthbert as a half, but this is a nice matchup here for Boyd. And then on the other side, it looks like it's probably going to be Jorge Lopez. He gets the other gift matchup going against Detroit. Lopez here in his last few outings, he's been bouncing between the bullpen and then kind of extended relief. He will probably get the spot start here. He has gone 53 and 52 pitches in his last 3 appearances. So I think 55 to 60 is in play here, but at this point it's price and matchup against Detroit because he's probably good for about 3 innings and change at best. But we don't have an official run line on this because Boyd is not in on all of the sites yet. It should be Boyd. I usually go with my gold standard. If it's on the MLB.com probable pitchers page, it's pretty much official. So that's the page he is on. So talk to me about Boyd, who looks like potentially co-ace of the slate, but we do have Clevenger and Aaron Nola coming up as well.
Yeah, I think I'll fill in for Ship My Money here because I know he is also a Boyd lover who was hoping that he would get shipped to the Astros, which I think would have been a better pickup than Greinke, even though Greinke is fine. That one outing yesterday probably not going to be the best one. But he did not open up as hot as Aaron Sanchez. But Boyd overall, just a nasty pitcher, 33% K rate on this season. Going back to last year, he was a 27% K rate guy. But there's no reason why he should stay that low because his swinging strike rate's actually been up to a 15% swinging strike rate, 36% chase rate. So he's taken leaps in the categories you want to see if a guy's strikeouts are going to be up. A low 3.4 xFIP, and the Royals are terrible. 75 WRC plus and a 144 ISO going against a left-handed pitcher. I think Boyd's actually in a really nice spot here, and I don't have his price offhand. Do you happen to have that?
I think it was 11 something.
Oh, okay. So it's a steep price for Boyd.
11-2 on DraftKings.
Okay. So I think I'll still be willing to pay for that because I would imagine this is going to be a low run total. You have a couple hitters here, may give you some pause. Soler, Cuthbert, I think who is the half a hitter that you mentioned. He's been pretty okay. Some isolated power against lefties, a 220 ISO. So I think that's not bad for a guy like Chester Cuthbert, who just seems like a created character in an MLB game. But yeah, I think there's some risk for him because Boyd gives up power, but I think it's still a spot where I'd be willing to go to him because the Royals are bad, and that's pretty much it. Jorge Lopez, not so much. I mean, I guess going against Detroit alone could be a value add. He's not pitching very deep into games. Also getting barreled at a really high clip, an 11% barrel rate, giving up a good amount of power with a 195 ISO overall. So if anything, maybe Detroit can actually get something going here. But this Detroit lineup currently projects that nobody above a 100 WRC plus versus a right-hand pitcher in their lineup. So maybe you could play Jorge Lopez. That's what a terrible world we live in.
All right, on to our 8 o'clock game here, our solo 8 o'clock game. We've got 3 to go. Reminder, you will get the DFS strategy show back at its normal time, 9:30 on Thursday morning. We changed it a little bit on Wednesday because there was those random early games. So they actually did a live before lock at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. So one of the rare times that we will do that, but everything should be back to normal on Thursday. And then, of course, Friday you will get the DFS strategy show. You get the Yahoo special show with Alex, Jake Hari, and Josh. You get I think the Osmo Odd Show is going to make an appearance as we start to get back into football here. And then, of course, you get deeper dive and live before lock. We've got you covered in a variety of ways. Our 8 o'clock game here, some intriguing pitching. You have Mike Clevenger, 10,800, going against Kyle Gibson and the Twins. Twins have been very good this season. This will just be the second time that Clevenger has faced them. Remember, Clevenger missed a ton of time this season due to injury, so this will be his 11th start on the year. He last faced Minnesota back on the 12th of July, so that was some time ago. We don't have to worry too much about Clevenger. He has crested over 100 pitches in each of his last 4 starts. We know that he does get the strikeouts. The question is, will the Twins be giving up strikeouts to him? Talk to me about your insights on Clevenger.
He's been great this year. I think that's one thing. I enjoyed him more than Trevor Bauer. I think if I were the Cleveland, I would also agree to keep Clevenger and ship Bauer out of town. 2.6 xFIP, extremely low, 37% K rate. And I think those numbers, they seem sustainable because he's been doing everything well. His swinging strike rate's been up. The power he's given up has been down a little for the most part. I think there's a really good merit to go into Clevenger today. I mean, the price is going to be an issue, I'm sure, for some people, depending upon the hitting you want to afford. But if he's cheaper than Matt Boyd, I could see going there. The power is terrifying for Minnesota, though. They blast everybody. Your boy Nelson Cruz has really been going wild with the home runs and possible performance-enhancing drug usage. Who knows? But a 39-year-old man should not be doing what he's been doing on the year, but he just keeps doing it time and again. But I still don't mind Clevenger as a concept. I'm sure he'll be a bit lower owned because Minnesota doesn't strike out too much, just a 20.9% K rate. I would think overall I'm going to prefer Boyd to Clevenger, but I've got to see everything shakes out with ownership and all that throughout the day. And Kyle Gibson on the other side, who is not Kirk Gibson, as I learned before the show from EMAC. Not a pitcher I think I'm going to be terribly interested in, even though I do think he's pretty competent. I don't think I'll be stacking Cleveland today, but Gibson's been pretty good on the year with a 3.6 xFIP, just a 24% K rate, so not a great fantasy pitcher that you want to go to necessarily, though the price isn't terrible. I still think I would just be Clevenger or bust for me in the pitching in this game.
All right, here's the fun one. Over his, or I should say, since the beginning of last season, Kyle Gibson, oh my God, he's allowed 40 home runs. However, that's over 1,350 batters. It is just 1.12 to left to righties, a 1.13 to lefties. He has a 140 isolated power to righties and a 143 isolated power to lefties. So he does not give up a ton of power in this one. That is the one thing he does have going for him. However, it is a whole new Cincinnati lineup because they do have Franmil Reyes. They do have Yasiel Puig. They have shipped Jake Bauers down to AAA. So it's not going to be quite as easy of a matchup as it may have been just a couple weeks ago. But he is someone that is worth considering on the slate as we see how the puzzle pieces fit together. Moving along to our lone 9 o'clock game. This is the 9:45 game. It is the Phillies heading from Arizona into San Francisco. They will be taking on Madison Bumgarner. We've got, 59 degrees at first pitch. There will be heavy humidity in the area, which is where we get a little worried. When it's that cold, it's fog. It's not necessarily chance of rain, but it could be a little bit misty. Keep an eye on the weather. Generally, this is the sort of thing that whatever it is they'll play through it should be light, but just keep an eye on it. They are right on the bay, and there is always a chance it could consolidate into an actual storm. But in the grand scheme of things, San Francisco rarely rains out or has postponed games, despite it perpetually being misty there. So just keep an eye on that one. But we do have a lot of pitching in this one. Aaron Nola at 10-6. Taking on San Francisco. Madison Bumgarner, 8,400. I'm a little concerned about Bumgarner here. Feels a little bit more like a tournament potential. But both of these teams are coming in with a 3.8 implied run total. That's just a tick above where Miami is. Nola, we know why. Madison Bumgarner, it feels like maybe these Phillies hitters aren't as good as they thought they were throughout the season because they just still haven't been turning the corner on this one, Chris. What do you like with these premier pitching options?
Yeah, I think Nola is a guy who does stand on a tier above Madison Bumgarner. Bumgarner's a fine pitcher, but I agree. Nola's he's worth the price a little bit more there. Just strikeouts have been there with a 27% K rate on the year, 3.9 xFIP, which is solid. Giving up a little more walks and hits than you want to see with that 1.3 whip on the year and some power, but he pitches deep into games. San Francisco, not a terrifying lineup, especially in a day where it looks like it's going to be 59 degrees there. And as EMAC mentioned, that mist and all that, it's not going to be a really good hitting environment that you'd want to see for them to really achieve. And San Francisco has been better, so I think to their credit, they could do some damage. But Nola is not a guy I'm terribly worried about in the spot. I think I'll be pretty comfortable with having him in lineups tomorrow. Bumgarner, or today, depending upon when you're listening to this. And Bumgarner, I think, is as well. He has some merits. Like going against lefties, he's actually been really good with a 2.5 xFIP. And I guess you'd expect that from a lefty pitcher. But also the strikeout rate with 28% is really good versus lefties as well. But this is going to be a mostly righty-heavy lineup, and I think that is a bit of a tougher spot for him. A 20.3% K rate, giving up a lot of hard contact as well with a 44% hard contact rate. It's not great stuff there. 174 ISO as well to righties. The park factors are good, so certainly don't mind taking a spin at Bumgarner at that price point, but not somebody I'd be terribly excited about. And I think more you're expecting him to limit damage because, like Emax said, I think Philly is not a good hitting team. I was willing to go with Zach Gallen today against them, and I think Bumgarner, I mean, he is a World Series winning pitcher, and Zach Gallen is not. So I think there is some merit in going to him at that price point.
Yeah, if we look at oops, let me click on active roster because they're for Phillies here against lefties. They're mediocre if we count the entire season, but I wanted to see what their WRC plus is. So that's weighted runs created plus, which is an advanced metric that neutralizes park factors, which is key because they play in a bandbox, and it creates a league-wide scoring efficiency baseline of 100. So Phillies actually have a 105 against lefties, which, considering they're very righty heavy, not a big surprise there. Let's just take a quick look and see what they have against righties here. Against righties, it comes in at 95, so they average out just perfectly average. But it's not what one would have thought with everybody that they brought in this season with Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto. And granted, they brought in Jay Bruce in a trade, but then he got hurt. But you had Segura was an offseason acquisition that hasn't lived up to his billing. It's been kind of a mess there. So not as scary of a matchup as we expected, particularly when this one's out of the humidity of the NL East ballparks. Yeah.
Also, just one note, because I want to continue this agenda on any show I could do. Bryce Harper kind of stinks, and we need to start recognizing that. Even though he's being paid like a guy, and he's been put up on a pedestal like a Mike Trout, a 115 WRC plus on the year overall, a 249 batting average. He's never been a big batting average guy, but the isolated power is down to 210 overall. Like I've played him so much, and I'm just tired of playing him because he just doesn't get it done. And I think this spot in particular versus Bumgarner, I would really have zero Bryce Harper overall.
All right. Did my voice change on this one?
Are you trying to scare me into thinking I'm having a stroke again?
Yes. Sorry. No way for me to fix this, but let's have you just wrap up the final game here for us.
All right. We got Colorado heading into San Diego here for the last one. Both teams getting 4.3 implied runs. John Gray pitching for the Colorado Rockies here. And the game is in San Diego as well, so that'll certainly help out John Gray rather than his usual pitching in Coors. And for San Diego, they're getting Eric Lauer, who not the most exciting guy in the world either. I don't mind going with John Gray. Let me double check his price here. Yeah, not a bad 8.2K price point for him. That's not terrible here going against a San Diego lineup who does have some power, but a little bit less good versus right-hand pitching overall. Today we're seeing them versus a lefty, or in this most recent slate, we're seeing them versus a lefty. It's not quite as good for them going against a right-handed pitcher. Even though they do have guys like Tatis still hits well, Machado still hits well, Hosmer still hits significantly better than he does versus lefties. These guys just aren't as good overall. So I don't mind going to Gray here, and I think it could be a spot where he benefits a little more. Strikeouts have not been great, but a 24% K rate going against the Padres team on the year, strikes out at a 26% clip versus righties. Could be a decent spot to go to. And Eric Lauer going against Colorado. If Eric Lauer going against Colorado in Colorado, I think you would want a lot of Colorado because you have the Nolan Arenado versus lefties thing, which is very real. 176 WRC plus going back to last year. Trevor Story going against lefties, getting a 143 WRC plus. Those guys just abuse lefty after lefty, and Eric Lauer, he does keep ISO to righties and a 2.6% home run rate. I think it's a decent spot for Colorado here, and Lauer is really not a guy I would trust against a team with any power at all. So I could see John Gray, but probably no Lauer for me.
All right. Did that help the sound?
Oh, yeah. There you go. Now you're back to usual.
All right. There we are. Good, because I wanted to make sure it would work. Okay, so just quickly before the sound goes out again on me or turns me into the witness protection guy, let's look at the one thing I wanted to call out on Gray. This will be the fifth time he's actually gone against the Padres this season. He's been adequate against them, but that's a lot of times to face people. Padres are coming back down from their series in Seattle. but that was played earlier in the evening, so it was basically an afternoon game. It was a 3:40 local start there, but they did have a fair amount of travel. Looking at Yahoo, we have Chris Sale, Aaron Nola, and Mike Clevenger at 50, 49, and 48. That will be where the popularity probably diffuses. Matt Boyd is at 43, Madsen Bumgarner at 43. Those guys are kind of interesting. No super cheapies of note. Thomas Pannone, 25, but against the Yankees. Dylan Peters, 27, but he's going against Boston. And then you've got Eliseo Hernandez at 28, but wait for it, he's going against Atlanta. Tough order for those guys. And then over on FanDuel, it's a little bit different of an order. Chris Sale's the fourth most expensive pitcher at 9,600. You have Nola at 10.8, Clevenger at 10.6, Boyd's up higher here at 10.4, and then Domingo Germán at 9,400. If you're looking for cheap and the guy that might get you a quality start, but you're still going to need Nola, Clevenger, and Boyd, you're going to need two of those three, or Sale, two of those four to have bad games. Dallas Keuchel at 8,700 or Madsen Bumgarner could get there at 8,600. Any final thoughts before you finish up your very first Early Bird podcast, Chris?
I appreciate you holding my hand through this one, Emac. Poor Emac had to wait for me to figure out how to completely reformat my sheet because the data sources that I usually rely on are not there for me in the way that I wanted. So I appreciate you a ton, Emac. But yeah, I think this is a better pitching slate. Honestly, the one that we had on Wednesday was not that great. This Thursday one's looking a little better. A lot of aces. I think we have to be appreciative of these good pitching slates because they have been few and far between. At least you're getting to choose from guys who actually get strikeouts. So it'll be a fun one, I hope.
All right, with that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Chris over on Twitter at Chris Spags. You can find me at EMAC DFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. Check out the pinned tweets. We've got a lot of new content coming. We also let you know what free content is out there. And generally, there should be a new promo coming up because we have NFL preseason football that will be free and in front of the paywall for the articles. There are a bunch of games going off on Thursday for technically week 1 because I really don't want to count the Hall of Fame game as week 1, but I guess this is week 2. And then there'll be content for the Friday games as well. So with that, gamers, we're going to get on out of here. Good luck.